Welcome to today's deep dive. I was actually just looking at the market data this morning, and honestly, it feels like we are looking at two completely different worlds right now.
Yeah, it really does feel like a split screen reality, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, it's February 2026,
Mm.
and on the left screen, you have this absolute bonanza in the tech sector. Companies are acting like money is free again, building massive infrastructure.
Right.
And then on the right screen, you have the actual human beings, you and me, the listener, who are suddenly deciding that a chocolate bar is a luxury good we just can't afford anymore.
That is the friction point. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah,
Because we have a really fascinating stack of sources to unpack.
we do.
We've got earnings from Applied Materials, the latest CPI inflation data, and this total crisis happening over at Wendy's.
And our mission today is to connect those dots. Because usually people talk about computer chips or they talk about cheeseburgers. They rarely talk about how the price of one might actually be signaling the ceiling for the other.
That's the goal. We're going to look at why the AI gold rush has moved from software code to physical steel and silicon. We'll break down why your grocery bill is weirdly lopsided right now. And we absolutely have to talk about that Amazon Ring Super Bowl ad.
Oh, the lost dog ad.
The lost dog ad. I mean, it looked cute to the casual viewer, but it terrified a lot of privacy experts.
Okay, let's get into it. And I want to start with the hardware. Because for the last month, all I have heard is panic. AI is a bubble. Software companies are dying. The hype is over. It really felt like the party was ending.
Right. And then Applied Materials, their ticker symbol is AMAT. They drop their earnings report and essentially say, what panic?
Yeah, the numbers were huge. They hit $7.01 billion in revenue for their fiscal Q1. But it wasn't just the top line revenue that jumped out at me. It was the margins.
Like gross margins.
Yeah.
Yeah, 49.1%.
Which is, I mean, that's incredible for a hardware company. That's almost software level margins. Usually when you build physical stuff, your margins are super tight.
They are, and this is a 25-year high for them. To put that in perspective, for a company that builds massive, complex physical machines to have nearly a 50% profit margin, that tells you one thing. They have zero competition that matters, and their customers have zero choice but to pay.
So if you're a chip maker, if you're TSMC or Intel, and you want to stay in the game, you just have to buy what AMAT is selling.
You have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Their CEO, Gary Dickerson, actually called this moment a tipping point. He's projecting global semiconductor revenues to hit $1 trillion by 2026.
$1 trillion. I do want to push back on that for a second, though, because we've heard these trillion-dollar predictions before. Is this just CEO hype to pump the stock, or is the order book actually there?
The order book absolutely backs it up. Their guidance for the next quarter is $7.65 billion. That is way above what Wall Street was expecting. But the real story isn't just more chips, it's harder chips. This is where the physics gets really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
So in the materials, they highlight a specific new system called the Xterra.
Yeah, I saw that name. It sounds like an X-Men villain or something.
It does sound intense, but it's an epitaxy system. Now, normally I wouldn't drag you into atomic physics.
No, drag me in. Because I keep hearing about gate-all-around transistors, and I nod my head like I know what that means, but I really don't.
Okay, think of it this way. For 40 years, transistors on a chip were flat, like single-story ranch houses on a street. You send electricity through them, they switch on or off. Simple.
Okay, flat houses. Got it.
But to make AI chips powerful enough, we essentially ran out of space on the street. We couldn't pack the houses any tighter. So the industry decided to start building skyscrapers, vertical structures. That's what gate-all-around means. The control gate wraps around the channel on all sides, kind of like a tunnel.
So instead of current flowing across a flat surface, it's flowing through a 3D structure.
Precisely. And here's the problem. Building a skyscraper is infinitely harder than building a ranch house. You need materials to be deposited with atomic-level precision on all sides of a vertical pillar. If you mess it up by even a nanometer, the chip fails. That is what the Xterra machine does. It builds these vertical structures perfectly.
And that justifies the massive price tag.
That and the efficiency. It's noted that the Xterra uses 50% less gas than the older machines.
Which matters because
Energy and raw materials are the biggest variable costs for chip foundries. If AMAT says, hey, I can help you build the fastest AI chip and cut your gas bill in half, that's why they can charge whatever they want. They are selling the only shovel that works in this specific mine.
So it's the ultimate pickaxe thesis.
Exactly. Everyone is worried if AI is going to replace writers or coders. AMAT doesn't care. As long as people try to build AI, they need the steel and silicon to run it.
Now, was there any bad news in the report? Because I saw a blip about China.
Yeah, that's the geopolitical tax. Revenue from China is down to 27%. That's the U.S. export restrictions biting. Plus, they had to pay a $252.5 million settlement regarding some past export violations with the Department of Commerce.
Which is $250 million. That's not pocket change.
It's a lot of money, definitely. But when you're printing cash at 49% margins, it's basically a speeding ticket. It isn't a car crash. The demand from the rest of the world is just swallowing that loss entirely.
Okay, so that's the view from the stratosphere. Trillion-dollar industries, atomic-level manufacturing, money flowing like water. Let's come back down to earth. Because while AMAT is popping champagne, the rest of the economy feels really weird.
Weird is definitely the right word. We just got the January 2026 CPI, the inflation data.
And the headline number looks great, right? Rose 0.2% monthly, and year over year is down to 2.4%. Core CPI is at 2.5%. That's basically mission accomplished for the Fed.
On paper, yes. The stock market loved it. The S&P 500 steadied because it signals the Fed won't need to panic and hike rates. But, and there's always a huge, but with CPI, inflation is a localized event.
Meaning my inflation isn't the same as your inflation.
Exactly. If you're a vegan who drives an electric car, you're having a fantastic month.
Why is that?
Because gasoline fell 3.2% for the month. And eggs, which were a complete disaster last year due to that avian flu outbreak, they're down 34.2%. That supply chain has completely healed.
Okay, but I'm not a vegan, and I saw one number in the report that made my eyes water. Beef.
Beef and veal, up 15% year over year.
15%. That is massive. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between having a steak on Friday night and having pasta.
And that's what creates this disconnect. You tell people inflation is cooling to 2.4%, but they go to the grocery store, look at a package of ground beef, and it's suddenly $15. They don't feel stabilization. They feel pain. The rate of inflation might be slowing down, but the price level is stuck on the top floor.
And then there's housing.
Right, the sticky one. Shelter costs are still the main driver, up 3% annually. And since that's the biggest check most people write every month, it eats up any savings they might get from cheaper gas.
So what does the Federal Reserve do with this? Do they cut rates to help people with housing, or do they hold steady?
The consensus right now is hold. They're likely looking at June 2026 at the earliest for a rate cut. They see the normalization path as clearer. But with beef spiking and housing stubborn, they are terrified of cutting too early and letting inflation rip again. They need more data.
So money is still tight, interest rates are staying high, and the consumer's really starting to react. I think the most shocking story we have today wasn't the high-tech stuff. It was Wendy's.
Oh, this earnings report is a bloodbath. There's no other way to describe it.
Let's look at the damage. Wendy's U.S. same-store sales were down 11.3% in the fourth quarter of 2025.
To put that in context, that is the worst sales result for Wendy's in at least 20 years. Worse than the 2008 Great Recession. Worse than the pandemic.
How is that even possible? People still eat fast food. McDonald's was up 6.8% in the same quarter. Burger King was up 2.6%. Why is everyone abandoning Wendy's specifically?
It appears to be a self-inflicted wound. Their interim CEO, Ken Cook, was actually surprisingly honest about it. He admitted they focused too much on sales overnight rather than brand over time.
Translated from CEO speak, what does that mean?
It means they got addicted to the sugar high of discounts. They front-loaded their marketing budget early in 2025, running constant promos to get bodies in the door. But they ran out of steam. By Q4, the marketing money ran out, the promo stopped, and the customers just left.
They trained their customers to only show up for a coupon.
Exactly. And Wendy's brand has always been fresh, never frozen. They're supposed to be the premium option in fast food. If you train your customer that you're actually the discount bin, you destroy your identity.
So now they're scrambling. They announced this Project Fresh plan, which sounds optimistic, but what is it?
It involves some really painful cuts. They're closing 5 to 6% of their U.S. restaurants. That's roughly 300 to 350 locations shutting their doors.
But the part that really caught my attention was breakfast. Remember the huge breakfast Baconator push? They spend millions trying to beat McDonald's at breakfast.
And they're essentially waving the white flag there. They're now allowing franchisees to cut breakfast hours if they aren't profitable. It's an admission that breakfast just doesn't work everywhere.
That's a huge admission of defeat.
It is. Breakfast is a habit game. You go to the same place every morning on your commute. Wendy's tried to break that habit with heavy advertising, but once the ads stopped, people went right back to the Egg McMuffin.
So what's the plan to win people back? Please tell me it isn't just more discounts.
Well, it is structured discounts. They're
Yeah.
doing this new menu strategy called Biggie Deals. It's a permanent value tier at $4, $6, and $8. They're trying to stop the roller coaster of random coupons and just have a reliable value tier.
And what about the actual food?
They're launching a cheesy bacon cheeseburger and a chicken tenders ranch wrap, which is clearly a shot at the people who miss the McDonald's snack wrap.
Nice.
And for sweet and savory, they're doing a collaboration with the Girl Scouts. A Thin Mints Frosty?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. A Thin Mints Frosty sounds pretty good.
It does. But think about it. Is a cookie milkshake really enough to reverse an 11% sales collapse? It feels like a bandage on a bullet hole. They're caught in the middle. They aren't cheap enough to be McDonald's, and they aren't premium enough to justify the price hikes they've made.
And speaking of price hikes and sweets, that brings us perfectly to Mondelez, the company that makes Cadbury and Oreos. Because this story feels like the exact other side of the Wendy's coin.
This is the perfect example of elasticity. Economists love to talk about elasticity. Like,
Yeah.
how much will you pay before you just stop buying?
And we found the limit.
We absolutely found the limit. Mondelez reported their Q4 organic net revenue was up 5.1%.
Which sounds good, but what's the catch?
The catch is that this was entirely driven by pricing. In their chocolate category, pricing was up 20.8%, but volume plummeted 9.4%.
Nearly 10% drop in volume. Usually food is pretty stable. You gotta eat.
You have to eat, but you don't have to eat Cadbury chocolate. This is the difference between needs and wants. Beef prices go up 15%, people get mad, but they might still buy it because they need dinner. Chocolate prices go up 20%. People just walk away.
Why did they hike it so much? Was it just corporate greed?
Not entirely.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented cocoa cost volatility. Prices hit historic highs in 2025. Mondelez had to pass that cost on to consumers, and it works for revenue on paper, but they're learning that consumers are buying significantly less product. It's a really dangerous game for 2026.
It connects right back to Wendy's. The consumer is just tapped out.
Right. The strategy companies have used lately, just charging more to keep profits up, is hitting a brick wall. People will pay more for chocolate, but they will buy it much less often.
Okay, so we've covered the chips, the burgers, and the chocolate. I want to end on something completely different. We've been talking about what we consume. Now let's talk about who is watching us consume it.
The Ring story.
Yeah. Did you see the Amazon Ring Super Bowl ad?
I did. It was clever. Emotional, really. A lost dog wandering the neighborhood, and the owner uses a new feature called Search Party to find it.
And the premise is that the AI scans all the Ring cameras in the neighborhood, identifies the dog, and tells you where it is.
Sounds like an absolute miracle if you're a pet owner.
Right. And that's the hook. Who can argue against finding a lost puppy? But Senator Ed Markey didn't think it was a miracle.
No. He and the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, they came out swinging against this. They argued this normalizes a neighborhood-scale surveillance network.
Explain that leap for me. Because to the average person, Find My Dog doesn't sound like a state surveillance dragnet.
It comes down to the underlying technology. If the AI can find a golden retriever across 50 different cameras in a neighborhood, it means the system is ingesting and analyzing video from all those cameras. Critics are saying it blurs the line between voluntary home security and a dragnet.
And there was immediate fallout from this, right?
Huge fallout. Ring and a company called Flock Safety. They make those license plate readers you see for police. They actually paused their planned integration following the backlash.
Wow.
Ring is denying that they give ICE immigration enforcement direct access. But the concern from critics isn't just about current policies, it's about the infrastructure itself.
It's the capability versus the intent. The intent might be find the dog, but the capability is tracking people.
Exactly. The same AI that identifies a lost dog relies on infrastructure that can identify a person. It's a massive debate between convenience, like finding a pet, and civil liberties, like privacy in public spaces. Now, we aren't taking a side on the politics here, but that is the core argument the EFF and others are making.
It's a heavy note to end on, but it really ties this whole deep dive together.
It really does.
So let's recap. What are the big takeaways for the listener today?
I think we have 4 main points. First, AMAT is proving the AI hardware boom is real and lucrative. It's heading toward a $1 trillion industry by 2026.
Right.
Second, inflation is settling on paper, but specific costs like beef being up 15% still hurt the average person.
Yep.
Third, Wendy shows the extreme danger of losing brand focus, while Mondelez tests the absolute limits of pricing power.
And fourth, Ring reminds us that digital convenience often comes with a hidden privacy cost.
Exactly.
It's a lot to chew on, and I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. As we watch chip makers race toward $1 trillion to power AI, and camera companies use that same AI to scan our neighborhoods, we really have to ask ourselves something. Are we building a world that is simply more efficient, or are we building one that is just more expensive and constantly watched?
That is the question of the decade.
It is. Something to think about the next time you look into a doorbell camera or try to order a $4 cheeseburger. Remember to look at the pickaxes behind the next headline you read. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Thanks for listening.